Welcome back to Tony's Toy Room. If you watched my previous video in which I showcased my Mega Man cartridge collection, you'll remember that I had it nicely organized and placed on this wall. I kind of talked in the past tense because, well, I went on vacation, came back, and I found it like this. Oh boy, I've had this up here for quite a few years. The shelf was actually one of the first things I put in. I did not put it into the studs like I should have. I put some drywall anchors in, and this crappy shelf fell out. Now, I call it a crappy shelf because the floating shelf just had these little screw holes in there in the back. And as you see, you put it in there and it would kind of move around. So I never really liked the shelf. It would kind of sag down. So when going to fix something, first step, go and find your studs. You want to find two studs. They're typically 16 inches apart from the middle to middle, or 14 and a half between the two. Then find the floating shelf. So here are some examples of ones. And I've got one with a bracket here. So it's going to provide a lot more support. You're going to want to drill your holes in first into the studs before you put the screws in. As you see, the mounting bracket inside this shelf, this floating shelf, goes like this. So this is going to be a lot more sturdy than that old crappy shelf that I used to have. So obviously we're going to want to make sure that it's nice and level. Should have used the longer one, but sloping forward a little bit okay. Then we're going to attach these screws in here. Just don't want want to make sure that this shelf is all nicely attached. Again, really wish I had done this back in the day. Not sure I got that other shelf. This one I just bought offline. You can find these things anywhere. So then I kind of want to test it here, and much stronger. Really just because it's put into the studs. So let's refresh. This is what it used to look like. That's where we started today. Kind of sad. But making some progress here. As you can see, this new one is a lot wider than the old shelf. So I now need to, because of that, I need to make sure that all of my behind the scenes stand information, help keep it organized, is intact. So started by cutting a 2x4. And one of the tricks I use is Gorilla Tape or Scotch tape. And you're going to see me plug Gorilla Tape. I swear I don't get paid by them. But I love using the black Gorilla Tape. It's nice and thick, stays on, and it's a great use for just kind of faking something to make it look black, make it look like one of those shelves I have. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm showing you how I like to kind of hide some of these kind of support fixtures using the black duct tape. And yeah, this is black duct tape. You look at it closely and you're like, yeah, that's black duct tape. It's not the shelf. But again, this is just kind of back support information, like for the games. You're not going to see this. This is just going to be like that little like millimeter or whatever between two Game Boy Advance games. So it's really just so that if you take a game out, it doesn't have this like weird colored wood in the background, or if there's just a little bit of space in between a couple of them, it's kind of hidden. So you see, I do want to kind of wrap around the edges nicely, and you'll see why later. Just so if you look at the side of the shelf, you don't have anything covering it up, you want it to look good. So there, boom, that's that 2x4 I put on the shelf, looked a lot better. So now here, I'm just making sure, just seeing how much width I have to work with. I've kind of organized the games how I used to, kind of how I like them. As you see, I do have a lot more space here to deal with. Not any more height, but so I've gone back and I've kind of organized those in the way that I want to do it. And so here I'm just showing you some of the, I've used some of these pieces from some extra IKEA bits I had. But you see I've kind of organized it here using some of those leftover pieces I had. And you can kind of play around and get the look you want. That was the look I wanted. And so, again, just have some of those remnant pieces that I had, which a lot of them I'll reuse. And just checking out the height, making sure that it's going to fit where I have that shelf. You know, ideally I would have done this before I put the shelf up, but good to go here. Just had that Nintendo box there to kind of help support this, keep everything kind of flat as I go. So you can see I've got kind of a little tiered system going there, a bunch of different things. I start with the GBA games and we'll kind of work my way up to the NES games. So now you're going to kind of see me working on making each one of those layers. So what I didn't show you was obviously different games or cartridge collections or whatever you want to show. They're going to have different widths. So I kind of did all that work ahead of time, obviously. But then I kind of showed you how, okay, once you figure that out, you can cut these pieces. Hopefully you have a miter saw or a table saw to do the dirty work. So now I'm just kind of going, and I've got all these different pieces. Remember, I said I had a bunch of just kind of scrap IKEA boards. So what had happened is I had bought, you know, a couple of display cases. Didn't need all the extra wood, or then I bought some extra ones, like for the, if you've seen my console display cabinet, you'll notice that I've got a couple of extra little dividers in there. And so I've used some of the scrap wood, and that's what I used to make these stands. So just kind of going through here. I do have this video on a little bit of a fast forward. You can't always tell, just because I guess I move a little bit slowly here. But using that black duct tape, and it does tear very nicely, but you can also use a pair of scissors and just kind of be careful so you don't kind of gunk it up. But you know, one of the reasons why I like, you know, this black Gorilla duct tape is that it's very sticky, but it's also thick. So I find it a lot more easier to use than the normal duct tape. I do have some you know, normal duct tape as well, and it's a little shinier. So sometimes I like to use that for different things, you know, such as you know, some of these. So you see I've got 3 of these pieces taped together, each one of them the same width, and I'd already kind of measured and cut those before to make sure it was the width I wanted. I didn't have this go the entire width of the shelf. I want a little bit of room on the side just in case. If we're going to be having these cartridges backed up against it, I don't need to cover every inch width of the board, because, you know, the average NES game is, I don't know, 5 inches wide. I don't need, I can have it overlap a little bit without anything behind it. So I'm using the scissors there, just kind of cutting. So, this is about the time where I realized that, hey, I gotta be repping Mega Man if I'm making my Mega Man cartridge collection display, right? Actually, I guess remaking it. So, gonna keep working here. Fortunately was able to reuse a lot of the pieces. Because I had made that 2x4 I showed earlier, that kind of gave me a lot of extra wood to reuse. And so I didn't have to make that many different cuts, but I did have to kind of resize my pieces. This is looks a lot easier if you were just cutting regular boards. I will say that this stuff is a lot more lightweight than a 2x4. So if you used a lot of 2x4s, you might have a heavier shelf, and you want to make sure that that is really supportive before you put it on there. But using this IKEA stuff, you see there's just kind of some space in there, some pressed together kind of particle board with this, you know, this veneer, which I'm now duct taping over anyways. But so that this is quite a bit lighter, and it's just fine for me. You know, I'm just putting some video game cartridges on there. It doesn't need to be super sturdy. And again, this is all kind of behind the scenes, so to create that tiered display. And I've kind of talked about, I really like showcasing some of these games that way, because you can see the cover art. You know, certainly it takes up a lot more space, which is a big negative. But if you've got some games that you're really proud of, really, you know, maybe really expensive, it's great to kind of showcase them, showing the front of them if you can. Again, it takes up a lot more space, and this is a lot trickier. You know, certainly it's a lot easier to showcase these, like I have a few of my other games, just kind of side by side. You see the top of the label. But, you know, obviously, huge Mega Man fan. If you don't know that by now, surprise. So I'm still working here, and I've now kind of Frankensteined, like, what, 4 pieces here together. So I don't really need to, but I'm still going to kind of put some extra tape here just to keep it all together, just in case next time there's a, you know, some sort of disaster at my house when I'm, you know, here or not here. I can go ahead and it'll be a little bit easier to fix next time. I did consider getting an even wider shelf to put even more games. Now you see more games now. I could have put my DS games out, the little cartridges. I could have put the PSP, you know, UMD games. I also have that the Wily Wars Genesis game, which I kind of wish I had made a little bit more room for here. Got some, you know, the old PC 3.5-inch floppy disks. You know, those would have been cool here. But alas, I did not have any more width really to play with between the bookcase and the edge of that wall. So, yeah, maybe my next toy room or next time one of these things falls. So I'm just kind of still doing some of that Frankenstein work, as I'm calling it. Again, I took that original, I kind of set it up a few minutes ago and showed exactly how I wanted these to be kind of tiered. And so each set of shelves, it was really important to know how wide they were, and wanted to leave a little, just a smidge of space, because you know, as you'll see, I'm going to want to fit some of these clear corner guards in that I really love to use to kind of keep the game straight. So what I'm doing now is I'm just, again, continuing to make each level of height, and then it's got varying widths as it kind of stacks up, and the games kind of go up a little bit like a pyramid. A couple of these are the same width. There's 2 or 3 of these that are the same width, and so you know, that was certainly easier for cutting. If I had a thicker board, I could have gotten away with not having to use those, but okay, thumbs up. I've got 2 levels done here. So I've got that 2x4 there, so that's nice. We already got that done. Sometimes I like using something a little kind of stronger somewhere in the process, just so it, I don't know, it's a little bit more structured. You don't have to, but it just worked out well for me. So I got 3 here, so I'm going to keep going to work. Going through a lot of duct tape here. You know, you'll see me. Boy, I've kind of blanked here. I am using the Scotch duct tape, and it's for that. I was using this because it kind of matched the shelf cover a little bit better. So you'll see some of this stuff kind of sticking together. I'm going to blame that on that Scotch duct tape. It is a little cheaper, but it's just a little thinner, and so that's why it's a little harder for me to work with. But again, it is cheaper. Picked that up at, you know, believe it, a big box home improvement store. I showed the links for everything. Boy, I just started talking about that Gorilla Tape. I got all excited and forgot that I actually didn't use it this time. Because I used this stuff, it was just a little shinier. Also, I kind of had some of it. I kind of wanted to use it up, and I thought I'd be using a lot here. And I didn't, and I knew that we wouldn't really be seeing it. But I swear, you know, obviously I'm not being sponsored by Scotch either, because I wasn't as favorable of a product there. Yeah, there's the 3M logo. I mean, don't get me wrong, they make good stuff. You know, certainly a better value. You know, cheaper. Just kind of figured, kind of straighten this out, show a little bit more of the shelf. Still taping these together, but we're making some pretty good progress here. Again, I'm just kind of cutting the ends. I'm trying to make the ends, especially that left end, look nicer, because where I've got this displayed, the right side is going to be kind of butting up against a display cabinet, which is in some of those massive Mega Man merch collection videos. I know you've all been watching. Thank you, if you have. But the left side is going to be a little bit more exposed. I don't get a ton of traffic up here, but if I did look on that left side, I want it to look a little nice. Behind the scenes. Thumbs up there. That one's done. So, kind of nearing the home stretch here. I've got a few more of these supports to make. You can see there I've got even like the old IKEA price tag on that one. So yeah, cut these when cutting with the table saw the long way. That's what you want to use the table saw for. And then the short way, the miter saw. That's the one that kind of goes up and down. You can kind of pick the angled cuts as well. You could use other saws. This is what I chose to do. Again, if you don't have access to a saw, then you're going to want to make sure that whatever you're using is your material. Like in this case, I'm using these, these IKEA, boards that I've just kind of repurposed instead of throwing away. But you're going to want to make sure that it's the right width and stuff. Not impossible, just probably a little tougher. I'm sure that you can probably find some sort of similar product out there. For me, I just kind of used what was available. Certainly would rather reuse something than throw it away. So I kind of kept some of this stuff around and kind of found this use for it, and it's worked out well for me. I did notice that the IKEA shelves had gone up in price. You see there, where I can, I'm going to put the nice edge of these facing outward, the black end. So might as well. Again, I'm kind of using this to kind of keep straightening these boards together, and then putting the first part of the duct tape on, and then I'm pushing the board out and I'm just kind of wrapping around the edge. The part that I want to look the nicest or without a seam is that front facing part, because actually very little that'll be facing is what you'll see mostly covered up by games. But in the event I take a game out or something like that, you want that part to look good. You don't want there to be a seam there between pieces where you can. Now, that is the one thing about using duct tape that can be a little tricky, is when you cut it, you can kind of see those cloth fibers. That's why sometimes I like using black electrical tape. Doesn't have that problem. However, black electrical tape isn't as sticky. Maybe we can go ahead and make one. Get some sponsorship deal going here. Tony's Toy Room. I feel like I should have something based on how much of the stuff I use, but maybe it's because I'm one of their best customers. So I've got this one up there, just kind of smoothing it out. Again, it doesn't look super nice right here, but trust me, we're gonna get to the end and you're not gonna see a lot of this. You're only gonna see how it functions and displays. So now I really am kind of fitting to the last, I'm nearing the finish line here. So I mentioned how I'm using mostly pieces that I had before. I had to kind of break a couple of these pieces that I'd cut to make them fit just with my hand. I do not have any saws up here in Tony's Toy Room. I've certainly had them up here in the past, but it makes a lot of, sawdust goes everywhere. You do not want to be using a saw in your house if you can avoid it. I'm just kind of showing again how I, to myself, making sure I've got everything. It looks like it's going to be a little too high. I need to kind of, okay. Oops, I had it too high there. Oh, yeah, much better there. That's how I was kind of looking for it. So before I had the last row of NES cartridges actually on the wall, and they were kind of held up with like a corner guard I kind of cut and found a way to put in. But this time I think I'm going to find a solution around that. where they're just on top of the these pieces. It'll look the same to you folks, but I think it'll just make things a little bit more secure. So now I'm just kind of breaking one of these pieces, like I was kind of mentioning there, just you know, with my brute force here, to fit it in there. So okay, so now I've just got to kind of tape this last piece. Pretty sure this is my last piece. Still got plenty more duct tape though, if I need it. So yeah, that is a Nintendo action set behind you. You know, I got a good deal on it. You know, I already actually already owned a you know, a top loading NES, and then I actually had a front loading, but the front loader started kind of acting up, so I needed another one. So that's why I ended up buying this and came with the set. This is similar to one that I would have gotten, you know, when I was a kid, but actually my first set was the one with the power pad. So that had the 3 games, the light gun, don't remember it being orange, and the power pad. I definitely know I was trying to convince my parents that video games were a workout and this was great. You know, I was just a kid, but you know, just being active. I don't think they actually bought it. Yeah, you know, it's like when you got one of these games now and there's like some reading or something like that, and you know, you're a kid and you're like, oh no, look at, no, this is, I'm like learning here, something like that. Yeah. But certainly I know the action set was what a lot of people started off with. So I think we're just about there. So now I'm going to take this over and I'm going to put it up on the shelf. Now you're asking, wait, you got a shelf over there. I actually bought a 2-pack of shelves, so yeah, that worked out. So I've got it up there. It looks a little shiny, kind of matches the shine of the shelf. And yeah, now I'm going to put these last pieces on. I didn't tape these in. I thought that, you know, hey, there's just 2 of them, kind of overkill. I think we're good. Now I'm just kind of cleaning it off. You know, I want to make sure any of that sawdust I was talking about isn't there before I start making these final adjustments here. So these are these clear plastic corner guards that I really love to use. You see, buy these at Home Depot, 4 foot long. I bought a stack of these and just love using them. Decided to use some fresh ones for the front of this, some nice clear ones. Because actually, as I mentioned, I've actually had this display for, I don't know, let's say 7 years, something like that. And I don't know, stuff had gotten just a little dusty, I guess. But just figured since I had some of these, I'd cut some front ones. So I measured ahead, and then once I measured one, I can kind of figure out how to do the rest. Again, I like to keep one of the edges to be that original straight. I use kind of these industrial shears. I had a better one. I have no idea what I did with it, so I'm using this one, which I don't like as much because it just doesn't cut quite as straight, but you're going to want something that's going to make a nice clean cut. And because this is like that plastic, you don't want to have that bending, that white part that can kind of come if you don't do a clean cut with something. So what I do is I cut these corner guards and I put them in, and I've got it's a little bit of an L shape, and so the part goes underneath, and then and then one part goes in front. That helps keep the games straight and organized, and I can push them back. It also lets me still see the games. So yeah, just a huge fan of these. So now I'm just going to kind of put in the clear corner guard support thing for that next layer. A ton of Mega Man Game Boy Advance games were released. So here I've already put the Mega Man Zero games in. You know, there were 4 of them. But there were, geez, how many Mega Man Battle Networks? 6 games released in the States for the GBA. There was actually a 4.5 that was released in Japan. So you'll see that one. And then they had different color versions for a few of them, starting with number 3. So in that third row, then I've got the Game Boy games, the regular Game Boy. You heard my little phone stand beep there. It ran out of batteries. So so what you don't know is I had actually gone and charged it up, and then I took a little break and came back to work here. Moving a little faster, I must have gotten a little bit more energized. So I'm just kind of setting this up, just making sure, that everything kind of looks good. Just double checking. Maybe it was that break that made me want to think about that. And yeah, this looks good. And you see, I got some room there below that shelf above me, which I do notice is kind of bowing a little bit. I hope I don't have another disaster on my hands. So I'm just kind of taking stock. I'm just kind of looking around, making sure, okay. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. So as you see, I got those, put all the clear corner guards in, and I set up one game in each shelf. So this is nice and sturdy. It looks good. And yeah, so I'm going to get to work. Got the Mega Man Game Gear game. So I did buy that originally when I had my Game Gear as a kid. Just kind of showing you a couple of the games. Yeah, here's that 4.5 Mega Man Battle Network from Japan. But that Game Gear game, yeah, that's darn expensive. I've got I got the box and the manual as well. It's really just got a kind of it took some stages, I think, from the first 5 Mega Man games, because I know it had Starman in it, and just kind of slapped them onto a Game Gear cart. And USA Gold called it a day. So right there, I just kind of measured the width of the shelf, because I wanted to center everything on that Mega Man Game Gear game. That's just how I had it before. It's not that it's necessarily my holy grail, but it is an expensive game. And so, you know what? Actually, I forgot. So I've got the original case, the box and manual for Mega Man for Game Gear, because I had it. But I sold it to Funkoland, which later became GameStop, through some acquisitions. But I sold it for the credit to buy Resident Evil 1 for PlayStation. So I felt like that was a worthy trade at the time. That was back in '96. I think it paid for the game, but I paid a lot more for the Game Gear for the game years later. I'd like to think it's some universe that was somehow my original game that came back home. So, Mega Man 7. You notice this has some meltedness. So, yeah, this is still my original cartridge. Actually, all these SNES games are. We went on a vacation as kids, and that 64 cartridge is a little shorter. I'm gonna have to fix that. Yep, put that in below, and it seems to work. But anyways, we were staying like some 70s condo that saw like these space heaters on the wall. I say 70s, had shag carpet, but was trying to hide the fact that, because me and my brother had our own little room in this condo, and trying to hide that we had a Super Nintendo, and we brought it with on a vacation, so hid it behind the dresser. There's Rockman and Forte. We'll come back to that for Super Famicom. But anyways, had it behind, and I was on that space heater, and we were in the other room, and we smelled something burning, and the Super Nintendo and Mega Man 7 had melted. After we let everything cool, they worked. Had to kind of use a knife to kind of carve some of the plastic that melted to allow the game to fit into the Super Nintendo. But yeah, I just kind of keep that there because it's a little special to me. So now on this back row, we're putting in the PAL, the European version, different box art version of the NES games. So we've seen some of these kind of parodied lately, and they are pretty bonkers. But then this Mega Man 4, it's just only slightly different, just a little bit. So I tried to get all the ones that had a different box art. So the Mega Man 5, even slighter difference. You You can kind of see it there looking at it. But, you know, I didn't like the look of this with them being too matchy-matchy, and I wanted to keep them in order, so I put them back like that. Because there's actually two versions of Mega Man 2. I think, you know, the PAL, and then I think there was actually like a Europe release. So then I'm kind of putting these games in. I've got the Rockman World, so the versions of the Mega Man Game Boy games, but the 5 in Japan. And we've got Game Boy Color and a Game Boy, you know, the enhanced one, Mega Man Extreme, Extreme 2. Have the Wonder Swan games, have the Neo Geo Pocket games, and then again, we've got all of these Game Boy Advance games. So I'm taking a look here, and the Wonder Swan games, the two on the right, and Neo Geo Pocket game, they're just a little taller. So now I'm going to put in the LED strip lights below that were on the shelf. And I really love the Wiz LED light strips. I get the starter kits. You can get them a lot cheaper online. That was just from the product page. But that's what I use in my my room, really, because they're very cost effective. I usually get that starter pack for like 25 bucks. Comes with about 13 feet, power plug, and little thing. You string them together. But here I am. I'm rehooking them back in. And then these are adhesive on the back, but I don't like to play around with these, so I love to use my Ryobi cordless glue gun. Again, I'm not paid by Ryobi either, but I love this thing. Yeah, I have a bunch of Ryobi products. If you just need something quick, you can always get a glue gun from Michael's for $3. You know, do the job. Really good, just has a cord. And then again, not sponsored by Gorilla here, but love their hot glue gun sticks. They really adhere very well, and so that's what I'm using here. So I'm just kind of dabbing some on there, and this isn't going to come off in most cases. But if I want to, I can pull it off. So just be careful with this. This glue gun does get pretty hot. I've singed my fingers a bit. So boom, there we have that. It's beautiful. Was this when I came back? Very sad. Poor engineering on my part. You know, again, did not put drywall anchors in, put too much weight on that. Should have put it into the studs. This is what it used to look like. Remember, you had a skinnier shelf and some stuff kind of stuck out. It was kind of neat, but I fixed it here, I think, and I really like that I've got it on this wider shelf. Just really love the look of this. So thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions on how I did this, please reach out. Tony's Toy Room. Thanks again. Like and subscribe.